Yeah. Or we can pick something that you've put some time into if you want. And, so you can be like, oh, I'm already familiar with this. If you'd rather do that, whatever.
That conceit would work if I actually played video games before we started this podcast. But I bought a lot of video games.
Yep. I was dying when I retweeted that. Like, somebody was like, it was like buying video games and playing video games are two different hobbies. I was like, yep. That's so true. Hey everybody, welcome to Pursuing Pixels. My name's Kevin Portelli, and I'm here tonight with our hosts Randall Nolery.
Hey everybody.
And DJ Mandolini.
Hello.
And we're also joined tonight once again by our buddy John Heinze.
Hello.
And tonight we're doing another Game of the Month episode. This month we talked about, I almost said we talked about Game of the Month. This month we talked about Into the Breach. And
we played Into the Breach.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. Wow. Episode, take 2. Jesus Christ.
Take 3.
But yeah, so we could just keep rolling here. Who cares? But this is kind of like a strategy. I was going to say relatively simple, but that's certainly not the case. But it's relatively simple, at least in like presentation. It's like an 8x8 tile-based grid. Everything is like, all the information's kind of given to you, right up front. Like the enemy takes its turn, you see what they're going to be doing, and then you're basically just trying to prevent that from happening. And then the overall framework for the game is like essentially a roguelike. You're just working from island to island, kind of defending these. On each island, there's buildings that are essentially your overall health that powers up your mechs, and that's how you essentially, once you run out of power, I think there's like 7 or 8 notches or something. Once you run out of power, your run is done. And then, but each mech itself has its own health, and or the pilots, I guess I should say, the mechs do as well. But once the pilots, all have their individual power ups, and we'll get into that as we talk about the game, I'm sure. And there's just different elements of like carrying, small things from a previous run into the next run. And it's basically almost like I don't want to say chess-like, but it has some qualities of that where you're really thinking about your moves and so that's just a brief synopsis. This is a pretty relatively well-known indie game, so we're definitely not breaking new ground here on this one or anything. But John, I know you had played quite a bit of this before. This was all of our, I think, first time dipping into the game. But I know you had played quite a bit of this beforehand, so you have some initial thoughts, having probably played more of this game than any of us.
Yeah, so I played this game a bit before I started playing it again for this podcast. I had unlocked basically every mech crew other than the final one. So I had, and each mech crew has a very specific mechanics associated with them.
There's 3 different mechs that all have different abilities.
So yeah, every time that you play, you select a crew, and they have pre-built ones that have arrangements of 3 mechs. Every crew that you have will have 3 mechs total. And the first one, I think, is more like push heavy and like melee heavy.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of you come into direct contact with a Veks, which are these insect aliens that you're fighting against in each map. And the so you get very intimately acquainted with the physical aspect in the first crew, and then the second crew you get, I think, is you can unlock them at any point with medals or
you
coins.
Get coins of some kind for completing challenges. Like each squad also has 3 challenges associated with it that as you complete those challenges, whether it's defeat an enemy from 5 squares away or whatever they are, you earn those coins, and then you can unlock and purchase these different squads. And you technically can unlock them in different orders, although the price of each one increases as you go up. So it kind of seems like you're going to pick one of these, maybe 1 or 2 as your first purchase.
Although I did unlock, after I think I unlocked the first one that was 2 coins to unlock, and then the next one I saved up for 6. So I did try to skip around a bit just to see what the different mechanics were. and each one controls completely differently.
Yeah, it's like almost a different game. I've unlocked the first 4.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say different. Calling it a different game's a little bit,
but you do
stretch,
approach.
But, you have to think totally differently about how you're gonna take these enemies out or avoid taking damage or whatever.
Yeah, because the problem solving that you really start to think in different languages for each one. So you'll have one that's fire based, and then you'll be thinking about like, okay, am I going to land a Vek on a tile that is going to cause passive damage to them, and will that be enough to take them out even if I'm not directly attacking them? Or you'll have an ice crew where you're like thinking about, okay, well, if I can't defeat this one outright, maybe I can freeze it for another turn, and then I won't have to. And that's I think cool. the best part of this game, I really think that is unique and sets it apart, is that at the beginning of every single turn, the Vek move first, but they don't execute their moves. So they just telegraph what they're about to do. Right. So the entire structure of the strategy is you preventing the moves that they have laid out on the map for you.
Yeah. Yeah, and like where they're going to sprout up from, like as you eliminate enemies, and every battle is only 5 turns, unless it gets more as I have not played the final island. So I don't know. I've only played. I'm one of those people that like, even though I know you can move on to the final island after 2, like I need to beat all 5 if I'm going to beat the game proper. I need to beat all 5.
I will say, unless I am going for a specific medal or a specific achievement, I only do 2 island runs.
Okay, wow. Interesting.
Because and even when I'm trying to do specific achievement, like that's the nice thing about the ways that you unlock coins or you get medals in certain ones is that there are like very specific objectives, like you said, like of like, attack from a certain number of tiles away, and some of them are structured enough that you have to either go through all 4 islands, or some of them are, you can just do it in 2. And I like that they have kind of allowed for a bit of leeway, unless you're going for the beat a level on hard, like that is a specific one that you have to do that. But for the most part, like if you're having a difficult time with the game, like you can just do it on whatever level that you feel comfortable with.
Yeah, there's easy, normal, and hard difficulty settings, and that's why I originally was gonna toss the ball to you, DJ, because I saw that you were playing on hard. I saw that you had made a post.
What do you mean you saw?
Well, I was. It was funny. I was talking to John when I was texting him, like, "Oh, I'm finally playing Into the Breach," and obviously he knew that was our game of the month. And he was like, "Oh, are you playing on easy? Because that's like the only way to play. Like, it's just like." And I was like, "Oh no, I'm playing on normal, and I'm just actually cruising through." And I was feeling like, "Yeah, I'm getting this game. I think it's just clicking." And then I paused, and I was like, "Oh fuck, I am on easy. Like I must have just hit the shoulder button and switched the difficulty." And so I immediately had to quit that game and go back to normal. I'm not a masochist, so I'm not going to go for the hard, because this game, even on normal, is pretty tough. But
wait, does it default to easy?
No, I just okay. on the default menu, if you
I thought I was going to be even worse than I.
No, if you if you click L or R on the main screen and you're not on like a highlighted like part of the menu, it will. That's how you switch the difficulty.
Got it.
And I must have just clicked that because you also can just hold down L when you're like looking at any other thing to like kind of bring up like as if you were highlighting it with a cursor on the computer, because it's definitely a game that. Strategy games, definitely have their root in like people, play them on PC, but it took a little getting used to the control scheme. Like you got to get it down for it to feel like, oh, I got this down. Like it just feels natural or second nature, but feels good. You can use up and down on the D-pad to cycle through your mechs. You can use left and right on the D-pad to cycle through the Veks or the insects.
Oh man!
And there's all kinds of like.
Yeah, I never did that either. Dang it!
I was moving my cursor around all the time.
Well, the cursor feels nice and quick, and the maps are so small. I mean, it's just that 8x8 grid. It's pretty easy to use either way, but it's nice to just like I just want to check the health of all the enemies.
Yeah.
It's really nice.
The cursor was fine. I just feel like an idiot.
That you could have quick mapped it.
That's right.
Yeah, no, it feels really nice on a controller.
Yeah, I know. Like, I think it originally came out on Steam.
Yeah,
before it came,
it was like early access for a really long time.
Yeah, but like, I think that the way that you can move around on, because it is like the isometric, like it's not like a straightforward up, down, left, right. It is at that angle of like 45 degree, but it feels completely natural to me. I've never had an issue with like moving it along the grid.
Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of cool, like, so you pick a pilot at the beginning of each run, and you kind of unlock these pilots throughout your play, and I don't really understand how you unlock them. You
Time
just kind of get them,
baby.
Yeah, you gotta.
But they're just random, kind of, right? Like you
Sometimes.
don't.
There's one on every island, I think.
But there's
random.
there's like 10 or 12 different pilots. So
So like I played through the game and unlocked most of the mech crews that you can get, but I actually, in just playing a couple runs to like refresh myself, I unlocked like I think 3 pilots.
Oh, nice.
And it just like randomly happened. And I think like some of them are condition based, but for the most part, I think it's mostly just random.
Yeah, just from playing the game, I guess. But they all have like a unique, like this one. I've been kind of carrying this one pilot over because every time you lose, you can carry one pilot from one of your 3 mechs over to the next mission. Because the conceit is that you're just going back in time. You're like, oh shit, we didn't save the world or whatever, and we have to go back and try again.
Or if you do save the world, then you go back and try to save another timeline.
Damn.
So that's what happens when you win. Is like if you go to the final,
essentially,
and it's just an infinite loop. Like
nice.
And so like it is. So I'm very interested to see like
Spoiler
which pilots.
alert, by the way.
Oh, yeah, fine.
whatever.
But like which pilots you guys chose to like bring with you, because I've kept like the same pilot throughout mine, and the mine has like an ability that when like he heals his own mech, like he sends out like a burst of air that like pushes any units next to him away from him.
That sounds
so you can
useful.
kind of use it like if like say there's a Vek that is next to some water, you just go next to that Vek while you heal yourself, and then also like that'll instantly kill it by any Vek that like is land based going into water. Is there any like pilots that you guys really stuck with or like, really liked their mechanics?
Well, if you checked out my Twitter post, I did use the pilot Abe quite a bit. He takes 1 less damage, so he's very resilient.
That
and I was
sounds
aiming,
useful.
yeah, and I was aiming for an achievement where it's beat the game 3 times with a single pilot. So
Okay.
yeah.
Nice. Were you able to beat it at all?
yes.
What a god damn it, man.
Jeez.
So I put about 10 hours in, and I do play games like a little more methodically. I'm just kind of exploring the mechanics. I've unlocked, like I said, 4 of the crews, and I'm just like, okay, I'll try this crew out for a few hours. Okay, I'll try. And every run, I'm taking like about an hour and a half or so to play a run. So
Right.
I think I beat it on my 6th attempt.
Jesus.
So I did that, and then that was on normal, and then I played 2 more immediately after that, won both of those, because I wanted to do like the win based off of like doing all 4 islands, doing 3, doing 2, just to see like how big a difference it makes. And then after I did that and got the achievement for 3 victories, same pilot,
Yeah.
I did hard mode, and I beat that my first try.
Oh my god! I played on hard for a little bit as well, just to check it out, and it was brutal. But what about you, Randall? I know you had a little less time to dig into this game this month, but what have you thought? Getting into it, what you have so far?
I have to go on after that.
You're welcome.
So how many times did you beat it on hard?
guys?
It took some time. It took some time.
I definitely made it to like the final encounter, but that in that run, I didn't quite equate the power grid level to my own health. I didn't realize that was a thing. Mm-hmm. So it didn't last long there. It actually took me a few runs for some reason to put 2 and 2 together. That was my most important thing, not the laid out objectives of that parcel of land. So once I started changing my mindset in the last couple of runs I did before we started talking, I'm doing better now, but unfortunately that doesn't amount to much in this game. It is quite difficult from my perspective.
Yeah, it's not an easy game. Like I said, even on easy, I like I said, I'm breezing through, but like I felt like I was just like all of a sudden it just felt like, I'm okay, I kind of clicked. I'm getting the game because I was making some cool moves like like John mentioned, the very first, I think they're called the Rift Walkers.
They're
the
great.
first mech that you get. Yeah, I probably like them best out of the 4 I've played so far.
Yeah.
But you can do, at first you're getting some abilities, like you have this one mech that can like shoot this missile that doesn't do a ton of damage. It only does 1 damage, but it pushes every adjacent tile one more tile away.
Right.
And then you can eventually upgrade that mech to where you can shoot the buildings without doing any damage to them. Because if you hit any of your own units or any of the buildings or anything, if you don't have any kind of shield or something to protect them, or some ability like I just mentioned, you're going to do damage to them. But you can do some moves then where you're going to shoot like, okay, I can't quite get my tank into range, but if I get it I'm 1 tile off, so I can get it right to the edge and then shoot this missile, have it push my tank 1 more tile over.
Oh, dang.
And then, and then be able to make that shot or use that ability that I needed to use or block a shot, put my mech in front of a projectile from an enemy that's going to be on the next turn. Like maybe it's worth, sometimes you really do. Sometimes I don't think there's a way out. Like you just have to take either some damage to the buildings or like I'm going to take some mech damage.
Oh yeah.
And you just kind of have to choose when to sacrifice. And like you mentioned, Randall, like you're picking like these different parcels of land on the island that are either earning you a star, which gives you like these reputation points that you can spend at the end of the island to get new abilities, new weapons, stuff like that. Really not much. Like it's not like you rack them up and you can, spend and get a ton of stuff. You get like a few things. Or you can get like, it has like a little lightning bolt and that can give you more health for your power grid, which is that overall like building health that we keep talking about.
Right. And also if you overcharge the power grid, that increases the defense that you have.
So there's like the percentage of like, is that just like the percentage that they might miss the
that they'll resist it? Yeah.
Okay.
Or that, if Vek attacks a building that like the building sustains like no damage.
Yeah.
I love that.
Which is always like just yes, it happens at the best moments when you're just like, I need it.
It's really nice that that's one of the few times that randomness comes into play, but it's, in your favor. Like there's no like risk of critical hits throughout the game.
Because the Vek are never going to miss an attack on you, and you are never going to miss an attack on the Vek.
Right.
The only time that randomness ever comes into play is when a Vek is attacking like a non-active like faction of it.
Yeah, and I know we mentioned like just I'm not the first person to compare this game to chess.
It's very chess.
But it's very much, you're really looking at the whole board and what are the moves I can make. And then the terrain really comes into play. Like, obviously, there's like mountains in the way. Some of the levels have dams. And like John mentioned water before. And the enemies that aren't flying, you can knock into the water. They die instantly. But your mechs can walk in the water, but they can't fire or repair, which you can like repair 1 health in a turn if you can't necessarily make a move.
Right.
So there's all kinds of stuff going on in this game. It's really got a ton of depth. Like it seems kind of simple on the surface, like not easy, but it seems kind of simple on the surface. But especially with all the extra stuff going on, man, I really foresee, and I love like number one. Obviously, I've talked about a million of these different like roguelike games on the podcast, and lately I've been talking about a lot of strategy games on the podcast. But I really like games that offer different, whether it's just like Mega Man getting new power-ups or Mario getting a new suit to wear. Like I really like games that just shift up the way you play. And like when this game, I think there's like 10 or 12 different mech groups. There's at least 10.
I think there's 10, but also if you ever like feel like you've mastered one of the preset groups, they do have a custom option,
which is awesome,
and a random option. And the random option is when you really start, and each of those have their own like achievement objectives as well that you can earn coins with.
Interesting.
So an easy way like that you can get those like early on in the game is like, I'm going to do a random group with the one crew I have unlocked. But once you start getting like a lot of them, then you really start getting like, if you have like one like poison like group and one electric like mech, and then everything that those preset groups are really built off like just goes out the window, and you just have to figure it out for yourself.
Wow. Yeah, really that sounds fun. Intense. Yeah, I must have just overlooked the random squads, but I love that you can do the custom squad. Like, oh man, I really want, because there is always like, there's like that one kind of weaker unit on each squad. They're really well balanced, but sometimes you're kind of like, wonder what it would be like if I just had all the powerhouse units from these 3 squads. And it's cool that you can mess around with that. And you can, even when you're playing with the different units, they're all like different colors and stuff. And this is like, I guess like 16-bit-ish pixel art, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe 32-bit. But it looks really nice, you know? And I was going to say, and before we forget, the soundtrack, I really love. I'm a big Ben Prunty fan. He did the FTL soundtrack as well, which was the developers of this game, Subset Games, their previous game. But yeah, it kind of goes all over the place. Like it has like some like chill, like electronic vibes, but then like some like kind of bluesy, folksy guitars will come in and but like gets like kind of industrial on the drums. Like I don't know, I really like the soundtrack a lot. It's real vibey. It's got those Donkey Kong Country 2 vibes every now and then that I love.
I will say, like, when I booted the game up for the first time in like a year from like playing it and just hearing like the opening notes of just that booming like low notes, I was like, oh god damn it, I've missed this game.
Yeah, it's a fun one. I'm definitely going to keep playing and hopefully beat this game at some point.
Yeah, you keep trying, you'll get there.
Maybe I need to pick Abe. Maybe Abe's the man.
Abe is great, man.
I keep picking, I think her name's Bethany. She has like starts each one with a shield, or maybe I've just carried over that.
Just let her die.
Power-ups. I have another character that like you start, like you get 3 on the first move of every battle, you get 3 extra tiles. So basically I can just cover the whole map on my first move. So I can put that mech anywhere. So yeah, there's a bunch of cool stuff. I plan to play some more. But
how do you guys typically spend your reputation points and like upgrade points? Because I pretty much would just upgrade the attack damage of my mechs. I wouldn't go much for the weapon cards that give you some new ability.
Yeah, I haven't. There were a few times that with if I was playing a crew that I didn't really like their abilities, I might swap out one of the new attack abilities, but for the most part I'm just plugging it into power cells, and then I actually would go health before attack damage.
Really?
Yeah, for
me
everyone.
too, yeah. I don't think I ever upgraded my attack damage except for one time, but
I never upgraded my health.
I would do health
and
or
movement.
move. Yeah, move.
And then sometimes, because sometimes you buy like, or you get one of those weapons. Sometimes you get them in like the time pods or whatever too. But you'll equip the weapon, but then you also have to power that weapon with these reactor cores that you sometimes find also in those time pods. This sounds super convoluted, but it's just like in the natural flow of the game. Or you can buy them with these reputation points at the end, which are one of the pricier items that you can buy.
But
in that
every once in a while,
section.
I think those like end of level things that you could buy with them, I think some of those are abilities that aren't in any mech.
Right.
Like I think they're just completely unique abilities.
Yeah.
So some of them, I think when I was playing the fire-based mech group, there was one that complemented their abilities really well. It was either something that like all smoke created fire, or like fire did additional damage. So like once that popped up in that group, I was like, absolutely, I was grabbing that, because this made something that was more of a support based. Then I could use it as an active like damage based one.
Got it. Yeah, I really just played Rift Walkers, and I don't think there were any that stood out to me as particularly favoring that class. So I was just like, I'm not gonna invest in a scenario that I may not be confronted with. I'll just upgrade my attack and get Abe at 4 damage, 5 if you make him collide with another unit. It's just mowing people down. It's great.
Did you unlock the crew that like does the majority of its damage by colliding?
No.
Oh,
I only unlocked 2, and the first one I unlocked was actually the Frost ones. The way I did, I was just like, I'm just going to go for the most expensive, and I was really thrown off. Just the fact that the artillery unit just freezes itself. It's just like, oh my god.
Oh, all the mechanics are so good.
I think I just got so used to Riftwalkers and like very into how they play that once I unlocked another squad, it was a little deflating. And so pretty much after I beat it on hard, like I played a run with 2 other squads. Like I did the one where you've got the plane that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think I got terribly far with either of them. And
well, like we said before, it's like not a whole different game, but I mean, you got to rethink. You're like, yeah, you're getting to be good with the Riftwalkers, and then you're like back to square one with this next squad.
It's just, I don't know. Maybe I'll go back. I mean, but I was just like, I beat it on hard. Like, I don't know what else.
Well, if it keeps looping, you can just keep going for those loops.
I got more games to play, Kevin. And more games to beat.
Yeah. Well, anyone else have anything to add on Into the Breach?
Not a ton. No, I definitely, my interest is piqued in this game. Like you said, I didn't get a ton of time with it and definitely clunked my way through those first few runs. But it is, we've mentioned this before, but it is one of those type of games that I'm thinking about when I'm not playing it.
Yeah,
I want to boot it up again, especially after this conversation, and take what you guys are saying and apply it.
Yeah, I was definitely dreaming of it.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, thinking of different layouts and just like how I could have done that differently or how that could have played out differently.
Yeah, because I really was super immersed, like just going hours into a run, just as. It's turning from daylight to nighttime, and I'm not even registering that. I'm just like, I didn't eat dinner.
All the lights are off in my apartment.
Yeah.
Got the friendly light of the Nintendo Switch.
That's all you need.
Yeah. All right, so the next game that I was getting into this week definitely involves not quite the same level of like strategy and planning of Into the Breach, like we were just talking about, but it definitely incorporates some of those elements into a genre that usually has virtually none of those elements, which is the game is SUPERHOT. And this just came out on the Nintendo Switch, which is where I picked it up, but I think it's available pretty much everywhere else. It's also available even in VR, and I think the VR experience might even be different than the regular game. I could be wrong, or there's some different elements to it. I know it's like a whole like different package, and you can buy them bundled together, so that would seem kind of pointless otherwise. But anyways, this is like a first-person shooter. That where essentially the conceit is that time only moves when you move, and this you're allowed to look around with the right joystick or with the mouse, if you're playing on a computer, you're allowed to look around, and that does not really progress time. But if you're moving your character at all, or if you jump, there's a jump button that's really your only. I don't think there's a crouch button, or at least I have not found it.
I don't think so.
But if you jump or move around in any capacity, that will continue to move time. So like sometimes you'll be like moving, like you'll be plotting like, I'm going to take this enemy out that's kind of ahead of me, and you'll be going to take it out, and then you'll kind of see a bullet just like whiz by right in front of you, and you're like, oh shit, there's an enemy off to my left, so you can kind of stop and turn and look and like see, okay, he's got a machine gun, so I can kind of, maybe I should back off and like get behind this wall, or maybe I should charge ahead and hope he, his aim's a little behind me or something.
Right.
So there really is that strategic element to like plotting your moves and figuring out how to go about things. But yeah, it's and for what it's worth, time is not completely still. Like if you just stand there and never touch the controller, you'll eventually get shot. Like it just slowly like glacially moves along.
Yeah, it feels like it's like a frame per second or something like that. It's
if
slow,
that,
but it's happening.
I mean, it's moving super slow, but yeah, and it's the campaign mode, I guess, of this game, which is kind of the main mode. You don't really have any means of getting into any other mode of this game, which is something that I have a little bit of a beef with. We can get into in a minute, but you just kind of like load. It's almost like the game's running on like MS DOS of some kind, and the game does have like one thing that I do appreciate. I don't have any strong. I don't like love the visuals per se, but I do appreciate in a game that is about mowing down things that look like or that are shaped like people, that I'm not like just sawing off limbs of flesh. It's nice that they're just kind of like these like red polygons that just shatter as they get shot.
Yeah, considering
Flesh is so satisfying.
Considering what the game is, it's not that like viscerally aggressive or brutal necessarily.
Yeah, which is something that that I can kind of sink my teeth into. But I guess I'll just get right into it. I touched on the campaign real quick, and through the whole campaign, I was kind of playing in like, man, I wish there was just some kind of like arcade mode. I wish this game was just like an arcade game. And once I finally did finish the campaign, I did unlock endless mode and then challenge mode, which allow you to play on like multiple levels and just kind of like, how far can you get? How many enemies can you kill?
Nice.
And it seemed to like the highest I got on the very first level of that was 16 enemies. And it seemed like it was getting tougher and tougher as time went on. Like more enemies were coming with each wave or whatever in this area. But yeah, I did have a little bit of a problem, or not. I shouldn't say a problem. It just didn't click with me. Like, just it kind of has this like kind of, again, fair warning on spoilers or whatever. But it's like it kind of has this like hackery vibe, or like it's all about like hacking and this, and I just really didn't vibe with that at all. I was not feeling it, and especially not only that, but it makes like the menus and everything, like the conceit, they like go so hard into it that it's like everything's clunky. Like if you can't even pause the game, like if you pause the game, it just goes back to the main menu, and then you go back into the level again.
Oh, really? I didn't even try that. I didn't realize that was the case.
Yeah, and it's all about like, every time you like beat a level, it's like hand over control. It's never like move on to the next level. It's always like it just does stupid stuff where it's like, shoot this. It's like telling you, like in the tutorial, it's like telling you to do stuff like shoot this enemy, shoot this, and then it's like good dog, or like trying to like make you do stuff, and then it'll be like, and then it eventually says something like it's I can't remember. They frame it in the way of like they're telling like a dog to do something, and then it's like good dog, and then they're like and then they just like are like die dog, and you're supposed to like die on purpose, and like I just didn't care for that general conceit of the game and of the framing of it, I guess.
I didn't mind the framing as far as it being like a program in an operating system, or actually it is a program. It's an EXE within an operating system. And I kind of like that stuff to some degree, because it is very like DOS / I wouldn't even say Windows 3.1. It's more like monochrome DOS type of operating system thing going on. But there's still some level of like internet or connectivity where like, oh, there's an update, a patch to your program, like let's try it now. There were bugs in that previous version, so
yeah, I almost forgot about that. There's like that was kind of annoying too. Maybe that's just what rubbed me the wrong way, but yeah, there's like you keep getting these incoming messages as you play. You get like booted out of the game, and it's like you get these messages that are like, hey, have you checked out this game SUPERHOT? It's the most innovative shooter in a long time, and like all these like I just really like hyping up it was like really like just kind of self-indulgent, I guess.
Kevin, do you just not like the talky parts in your action games?
Well, it's not that, but it was like it really like was like it just rubbed me the wrong way. I was like, man, the game's cool. Just let the game speak for itself. You don't need to tell me how cool the game is.
Yeah.
That just always rubs me the wrong way. I don't think I've ever enjoyed that like tone in a game.
Show don't tell.
Yeah. And the thing is like the mechanics of this game do show, it's really fun to play. I'm have a blast once I'm in the game and I'm just playing. And now that I'm just playing these endless mode levels, like that's awesome. I'm loving it. And I'm really excited to keep exploring how many more levels I can unlock, and just kind of, it seems like a really good, like pick up and play. Like, let me just high score chase. I've talked about that before on the podcast. I like doing that in pinball games or whatever, whatever kind of game it is. I just like chasing high scores, even if it's just my own. So this is something that I do see myself coming back to just kind of, I just want to mow down a few red guys.
Yeah. I'm curious, is there any sort of stealth element, or do all the enemies know where you are right from the start?
I don't know if they're, I don't know if
they know where you are.
Yeah, they definitely come towards you. I don't know if they don't have a line of sight to you, if they can see you. I don't know, but it seems like they just kind of come towards you, yeah.
But there is like a cover element as well, where you can hide behind objects.
You can like run behind walls and stuff, but you played a little this week as well, right, Randall?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
And you're playing on the Xbox, right?
Yeah, I'm playing the Xbox One X version of it. Which it's a pretty game. I think it's 4K because it looks pretty crisp. And yeah, I've only played like the first 7. I don't know. I wouldn't call them levels necessarily.
I think you had a good term, like instances or whatever you called it before. There's only about 25 or so, I would say, in the campaign. It's not a very long game. I think it was even originally like a free to play, like Flash browser game of some kind.
Yeah.
Or like a game jam game.
Yeah,
it was something.
Game. Yeah.
Yeah. And then maybe it was like on itch.io or whatever. But yeah, they ended up kind of fleshing it out into like a full package. And again, I wasn't crazy about how that package was presented. And again, these modes that I do like, unfortunately, there's no, at least to the best of my knowledge, maybe there's some kind of code you can put in or something. But to the best of my knowledge, there's not a way to access those without playing through the main campaign. Like that only unlocked after I finished the campaign.
But if it's that short, that doesn't seem too bad to me.
Yeah, I would say the whole campaign took hour to an hour and a half, maybe two at
Nice.
most.
Wow. Yeah.
Whoa. Like very short. Yeah. So it's all about the mechanics here, I would say.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of the cool things is like, especially it feels extra cool in endless mode is like, so after you beat a level, you know, or after you die, I guess, in endless mode, but it will then play your replay in like real time as if you were playing it like as a normal first person shooter.
Whoa.
And so it looks like you're just a badass, like just whipping around, like swinging 180 degrees, just mowing people down. Like, and it does have some cool, like, I really like the feel of like, you know, you can grab a lot of like, not debris, but like just things that are scattered on the level. So there'll just be like some vases over here. And like, oh, I don't have a weapon, but I can grab this vase. I can whip it at the enemy that has a pistol. Grab the pistol.
Right,
so like once it hits the enemy, they drop the pistol. It doesn't kill them, but they drop the pistol. You grab the pistol out of midair, you blast them, and then you have to move a little bit to give you enough time to reload, and it just makes like a kind of a clicking reload sound.
Right.
And then and yeah, so far all I've encountered, I think there's just like pistols, machine guns, and shotguns.
Which you can all throw when you're out of ammo too.
Yeah. Oh, and katanas and baseball bats.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is, really fun. It's really fun to kind of just like juggle some stuff, or you feel like, again, and it's just like that feeling of like, you think you have a plan, and then like all of a sudden some bullets just come whizzing past you from another direction, and you're like, oh shit, I did not even realize there was like a hallway over there or whatever. So it's pretty cool. Again, like you said, to call them levels is a little bit of a stretch. They're more like, instances or like little mini like arenas. Yeah. That you're kind of like just, you know, choreographing, and it is like, you know, it's cool because you're shooting and you're like leading the receiver almost. You know, you gotta like, but it's everything's still. You're not actually doing it in real time, but you have to be like, okay, I think this enemy, they're like running towards me. I think they're gonna go down that hall to the left. So if I like shoot here now, I think by the time I move, like it'll hit them. And again, the enemy's bullets also hurt the enemies as well. So like you can kind of line stuff up. Yet. Yeah. Oh yeah. It's definitely more noticeable in endless mode because you can kind of like. I had one. I like actually just kind of dropped the controller and my character just started running all over the place because the joystick was pressed down. But like I just kept getting kills. I wasn't touching any. Like I wasn't shooting at all. And I was like, oh, I must just be racking this up because they're killing each other trying to shoot me. So.
Yeah. Even though it's in super slow mo, it feels very hectic and very like kinetic.
Yeah, and it feels like when you watch the replay, it's like that's what it felt like while you were playing. You know, it's pretty cool. Yeah. It doesn't feel like a super easy or dumbed down experience in any way. It just kind of adds a new strategic and almost like puzzle like element to the gameplay of a first person shooter, which again is a genre that I don't play that much of. In fairness, you know, I don't have much to really compare this to. As a touchstone, but there's some nice, you know, a lot of sensitivity controls. Like you're able to, it starts at like 1, you're able to go up or down from there. So like, it seems like I was able to fine tune that, like even to the point where like just bumping it down to 0.9 made enough of a difference to me to like, oh, that feels a little better. Oh, nice. So like it's definitely got some nice fine tuning to the mechanic or to the controls. And for what it's worth, I don't know if you tried this at all, Randall, but it does default to gyro controls. I did not play. I did not play with gyro at all, but it does default. And we do have Gyro John. I know we got Gyro John on the podcast. So
I'm a gyro defender too.
I know you play like Breath of the Wild and Splatoon and all that with gyro, right, John?
I like getting that just fine-tuned touch.
That's right.
Yeah, it does. I was definitely interested, especially because you know that was the default mode of the game, and once they showed like. I was playing with the Pro controller, so it didn't come to mind. I was just like, as soon as it started doing it, I was like, oh, I don't want that. But like, if I had a Joy-Con in my hand, that might be a little different. That might feel a little better. Of like aiming a pistol might feel kind of cool with the Joy-Con. Like, because I did like that feeling playing on the Wii and stuff with like the nunchuck and Wii remote setup. So I don't know. I think I might try it now that I'm like through the campaign and know what the game's all about. But yeah, I definitely plan to play more. I see this being a game that I just kind of go back to and be like, I wonder if I can beat that high score when I just randomly have an itch to play it. So,
and yet another game that would be fun with VR, getting that eventual PlayStation VR headset.
I know. Although I did splurge on the Switch, like I said, to pick this one up since I got caught up in the hype of like, oh, it got announced and it's available right now. Yeah. Oh, okay, I guess I'll buy it. But this game's been on my radar for a really long time. Yeah. So,
do you regret not doing the VR and having the?
No, because it is a separate game. Like you have to actually buy a separate VR game. You have to buy SUPERHOT VR separately from SUPERHOT. But
which I doubt you'll do.
I still would maybe if it is in fact a totally different experience. If I do end up getting a VR setup, yeah. So if I do end up getting although if there are more levels that are themed in that hacker theme, then maybe me personally would not be super interested in that.
It's just I've been wanting to play this, but I feel like I need to do it the VR version.
Interesting, because it definitely was not a VR game originally. Like that's not how it originated.
And I guess that's how I first heard about it, was seeing the VR of it. So maybe that's just how I first saw it. So that's what I associate it with. But maybe I should just be a sucker like you and get it on Switch.
I could see it being really cool in VR, though. I think I would want to play it in VR with gyro controls or with like the PlayStation Move controls or whatever. That would be cool if that's a possibility.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like something I want to try.
Yeah.
Well, I've got no real transition of any kind in any capacity here, but John, last time he was on the podcast, talked a little Dragon Quest Builders 2, and I think Randall talked about it a little bit too. You guys had both played Randall more so the original game, but in the series. But why don't you talk a little bit about that? I know you've been playing some more of that and some of the DLC.
Yeah, so I think when I was last on the pod, I had beaten 2 of the islands. And since then, I've beaten the main campaign of the game, and really enjoyed it. It was a lot of similar structure of you'll go to a new island, they'll have a series of quests or a series of new mechanics that they'll introduce that you start doing, and then by the end of the game, you have a culmination of all those different mechanics that you have, and you're trying to put them all into play. And I think it does a really good job of introducing them and rolling them out in a way that feels natural and it doesn't feel like you're overwhelmed at any point. But since beating the game, I've mostly just been playing on the Awakening Isle, which is the free play area of the game. Yeah, and I've really been enjoying my time. Just at one point, I was like, oh well, what if I just swam out as far as I could into the ocean, just started building an iceberg and creating your own goals at that point. It still does a really good job of each after you beat an island, you get a new pedestal that you can warp to, and that will have its own series of goals that are specific to the island that you just beat. So one will be oh, we're going to build a castle, and we're going to build these rooms that are associated with that, and those mechanics, and grow these amount of crops or something. So it really takes the smaller things that you did a very granular level on each individual island that you would take then back to this free play zone and still give you an incentive to continue to do them or to continue to just grow and discover new things.
Nice.
Because even beating the game, I still have, I think, only 60% of all items unlocked in the game.
Jeez.
So there's still a lot of just here's a new recipe that I unlock, and even recipes have their own prerequisites that you have to do to unlock them. And so I was having a really good time with just doing that. But then I was also, I remember in Dragon Quest Builders 1, there was a fishing mechanic And then I remember seeing like screenshots of people doing that, and having beaten the game, I was like, I don't know how I could have missed that mechanic in 2. But then I realized that it was a DLC, so I had already planned on getting the season pass bundle to start with, and I picked that up, and that introduces, I believe, after the first island, you can start going there. So even though like I had gotten it after I beat the game, if you get it at the same time when you start the game, you can access this island, and that introduces the fishing mechanic. And that gives you a separate number of objectives that are, and it's way more fleshed out than it was in the first one as well, because that was basically just throw a fishing line out and then you get a fish back. Like this one is its
like
own
Zelda
mini
fishing,
game,
basically.
Right?
Can you do this anywhere in the game, or is
anywhere there's
designated
water
to that region?
So the fun thing that this one does is that depending on where you fish, like you'll get a different type of fish back. So if you're going out in the open ocean, like there's a set of fish that you'll get there. If you have one that's like in a pond, like you'll only get a specific type there. And I've only started that, so I've gotten, I think, maybe 6 or 10 fish, and I think there's somewhere up or like 30 or 40. So there's a good amount of different environments that you're encouraged to go, like, and I think certain ones are like specific to like an island that is in the main game, so that encourages you to travel back and forth between the different areas from the like free area in the game where I am most of the time. So yeah, I'm having a good time, just like having a reason to go back to a place that I haven't visited since the beginning of the game, and it's really nice.
Is there more like this DLC? Is there more like campaign-esque stuff added? Is there more story stuff, or is it just like there's just more like abilities and things to do?
So like it's kind of like side quest. It's not like a main campaign or like an additional thing like that. But like for the fishing island, there's a whole series of quests that like was designed to like introduce the mechanic and get you used to like, oh, like this is how you catch a fish. This is how you can, because it was also like an aquarium DLC. So like it was a way like after you catch a fish, like you don't see a fish before you catch it, but once you have it, it becomes an object in the game. So you can set up an area with like nets around an area. So then like you can let loose a fish and then it'll swim around and you can watch it. Or you can build an aquarium and you can let them loose and you can see them there.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's a really nice way to add an extra mechanic. And like it does have like quests that are specific that teach you those mechanics. So I think I'm only like a quarter of the way through the quest line of the like fish DLC. But there is also like other DLCs. The modernist pack, I think, just introduces new objects. Like you'll just learn all those recipes from the start. But like now I have the ability to build a really nice modern looking kitchen that like as opposed to my like castle with bonfires or a brick oven.
Yeah. Have you played any more since the last time we talked about this, Randall, or?
No, but my interest is piqued. I mean, I didn't mean to drop off this game in the first place. I want to play more of it, but I didn't realize with the DLC that you could get to that island after basically getting off the first tutorial island. So, I mean, I'm right in line to be able to make use of that DLC content if I bought this season pass. So that's interesting.
Yeah, this is definitely something that, again, I haven't played too many games, and I know I talked about, not that it's anywhere near a direct comparison, but No Man's Sky a couple weeks ago. But like I haven't played too many of these kind of like build your own, like, you know, you're kind of crafting your own story, I guess.
Right.
As you go and but really heavy on the crafting and the building and stuff. I haven't played too much stuff like this, but it sounded like from what you've said this week and last week, or not last week, but last time you were on, it seems like there's a lot more wrapped up into this game to really flesh it out into something special, that it's not just this like, you know, like Minecraft looks cool and I haven't played it, so I'm not trying to talk shit about Minecraft or anything, but like it looks cool, but it also looks like you have to be super creative and inventive for it to be cool.
Yeah,
and
it's Legos.
this looks like this is like nudges you in some directions to like be creative, but also gives you some guidelines, but also like even stupid stuff like giving you the fish and letting you throw them in an aquarium to like see the benefits of like the time you put into this game. It's stupid that it's just some digital fish swimming around, but it just feels good to be like, hey, I've got 30 of the 40 of those, and look at how full that aquarium is. You know, that just feels good.
There was an area that was a big enough area of coastline that I didn't have any dedicated buildings on the free area, and I was like, you know what, this kind of like one of the tile sets they gave you kind of looks like a submarine, and I just started like building them, and it made it a little area that looks like it's a marine biologist haven, and I'm gonna put all my fish there, and it's gonna look real nice. And it was not something that like it never said like, oh, like use this tile set to make this thing. Like it was just like, I think that would look nice. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I just like the art style of like, it's not all just voxels or like these giant boxes. You know, there is like some really nice looking character designs and some really nice looking, you know, just items and stuff like that. It's not just this like really basic, you know, again, I'm not trying to just bag on that voxel style, but like it just, you know, I like that there's a little more detail into this world, you know, both in the visual style, but just in the overall package.
It's got that later Dragon Quest cell shaded vibrant look, which is always awesome.
Yeah, just bright and colorful and cheerful.
Yeah, and between honestly, like I had never played a Dragon Quest game before, probably Builders 1.
Oh dang.
And between this and like the Hero being released on like Smash DLC, like I am very excited and will absolutely get like once the Dragon Quest 11 comes out on Switch,
11S or whatever. Yeah,
I am snapping
it's on my radar too.
Yeah, I'm curious. I've also never played any of the. I think I played like Rocket Slime, Dragon Quest Rocket Slime on the DS,
baby.
Which is like kind of like a top-down Zelda game with some like Rock'em Sock'em robot. Almost more, not Rock'em Sock'em robots. I guess that's what it's like, kind of looks like presentation-wise, but it kind of is like Lovers in a Dangerous Space Time almost. So I guess single player wise, but like you're running around in this mech and like fueling it and like, you know, I don't know, like loading up the weapons and like doing all this, like you're multitasking inside of this mech to like run it and do these boss battles.
It's really cool that game exists. It's such a weird game.
It is, yeah. I actually finished really cool. That whole game, yeah, which is not, again, like we've talked about many times on this podcast, it's not always the case of seeing one through all the way to the end. But yeah, I have very limited and no experience with like the traditional RPG Dragon Quest games. So I'm kind of curious to check it out just because, you know, any game or franchise that's been around for 11 installments.
Yeah.
It's like I'm at least interested in what it's about. So, yeah.
For sure.
All right, so for the next game here, we're actually going to venture a little bit off the beaten path. And since we got John here as a special guest, we actually were playing, I was out at a little, I wouldn't even call it a bachelor party because it was more like just...
Wow!
Well, I just mean like...
I considered it one.
Well, I consider one. I guess I just mean like the kind of party. I just mean like...
I had a great time with my friends.
I had a great time as well. I just mean in the sense of like, when you hear the term bachelor party, you think like, oh, go to the strip club or like, I mean, I don't think that and I have no interest in doing that sort of thing. Yeah. But I just like that was my kind of bachelor party. I did not mean that as a slight in any way at all.
Kevin's kind of bachelor party.
But no, I was, you know, we just went and got some burgers and hung out and went to a board game bar and like did a few different things. I unfortunately still with my hernia stuff had to call it a little bit earlier of an evening, but I know there was a few other things on the docket. But we ended up going to this board game bar, and even though we went to a board game bar, we actually played a game that we brought. Which is a game called Hanabi, which is a card game, and it is a cooperative card game, which is something that over the past like maybe 2-3 years, I never even realized that like cooperative board games existed until I played. I think it was Pandemic was one of the first ones I played, and it was just like, oh man, this is so fun to play a board game like together as a team. Like we're not trying to just like, because some of those games can get so trolly, like even Catan, you can just like, okay, I don't have a chance to win, so I'm just going to decide that John is not going to win this game. I'm not going to let him, I'm never going to trade with him. I'm never going to do any, you know, I'm just going to screw him over every opportunity I get. And so I really like these cooperative games, and Hanabi is another one of those. Not a board game, but a card game. But I know DJ was not there for this particular playing of the game, but he and our buddy Glenn and I have played quite a few times in the past. And essentially the conceit of this game is Hanabi, I believe, means fireworks. And you have 5 different colors, numbered 1 through 5, and you're essentially trying to build stacks, or not solitaring them, but essentially like you're counting up 1 to 5, and of each color you have 3 1s, and then 2 of every 2, 3, and 4 cards, and then 1 5, and you have 4 cards in your hand, 5 if you're playing less than 3 players, I think.
Yeah,
or 3, or so I think you can play up to 5 players. And essentially you're holding, the only cards that you don't see are your own. And you're able to see everyone else's hand, and everyone's holding their hand kind of like in front of them. And you have 3 moves you can make on your turn. You can either play a card, you can give a hint, which costs a hint token, which you have a limited amount of. I think there's maybe like 8 or 9. I don't remember exactly how many. Or you can then discard a card, which will, if you've spent any of those hint tokens, will give you a hint token back. If you've not spent all of them, if you've actually depleted all of your hint tokens, discarding a card will not give you any more. This game is kind of brutal if you're trying to like really maximize, your maximum score you can get. Like I said, there's 5 suits, stacks of 5. You're trying to get as many points as you can. So the max points you can get is 25. You can. There's also like a kind of like rainbow colored set that you can throw into the mix to just like add an extra challenge to the game and say like, oh, we're just adding a 6th suit into this game.
That's cool.
But really fun. And it's like, in the hints that you can give, essentially the main gameplay mechanic is like, so when all those things obviously come into play of like, am I going to give a hint? Am I going to discard a card? Am I going to play a card kind of blindly? But essentially this is why it would be blind, is like, so when you're giving someone a hint, let's say John has 2 green cards in his hand, and like a green 3, a green 5, and then a white 1 and a yellow 1. If I were to give him a hint about, let's say I want him to play that white 1 card, I can't just tell him, hey, this is a 1 or this is a white card. I have to tell him if I'm going to tell him that card is white, I have to tell him about every white card in his hand. Or if I tell him that card's a 3, I have to tell him about every 3 in his hand. So I can never like just selectively, like if we know we need to play a green 3 next, I can't just highlight that 3 and be like, hey, John, that's a 3 if he has other 3s in his hand. Okay. I have to tell him about all of them. And it's all about, when Glenn, DJ, and I would play a couple years ago, a little more consistently, I mean, we kind of got in a groove of like, we knew how each other gave hints. I think at one point where the highest we ever got was, I think, 23 points.
Yeah.
But could've otherwise, I mean, otherwise we kind of hover. What did we get the other day, John? I think it was like 16.
Well, no, we would have gotten 17 had I not ruined because you are only allowed to make 3 mistakes before you lose all. Like that is the only hard lose state of the game. Otherwise, it's you're on a graded scale of how great the fireworks performance is. And like less than 5 is disappointing, and then you get other like, this was an interesting, or like legendary is the 25 that you're always trying to get. But if you make 3 mistakes, that is the only time that you score 0 points. And on the final move of our game, Kevin was giving me a hint that he thought was very clear, and I played the only card that was not included, because I was like, yeah, Kevin gave me those 3 like very clear hints, so I'm gonna give the other one.
Yeah, it was like a wild card. Like he had 3 4s in his hand, two of which could have been played. And it was like literally the last move of the game, so it was just trying to get like 1 more point to get a higher score. And it was just like, I was like, I'm going to just roll the dice and like, okay, I'll tell John these are 4s and he's going to play one of the 3. And then
And I was like, yeah, I'll play
66%
anything
chance.
besides that 4.
Yeah, John's like, let me play this one that I have off to the side, which I think also like a lot of times, like at least I will like kind of like crook a card to the like on an angle or like put it like on a, you know, move it to the left, all the way to the left of my hand or something to kind of remember like, oh, that's a 1 or that's the card that somebody just gave me a hint about. And John had this card kind of like tipped to the side, but I think so in my head I was thinking like, oh, he knows what that card is, so but apparently he had
I was
no
just
idea.
holding it weird.
But a really fun game. But one thing I will say, it is definitely not a like just like pick up and play like party fun. Like, you know, some of these games are just like, oh, let's play apples to apples, and like this is like you gotta focus, you gotta like you're really not talking that much. Like other than
table talk
about
is
the game,
discouraged
and
in
actually,
the
yeah,
game.
like table talk, like you're not even allowed to like, or allowed. I mean, yeah, obviously you're policing the game yourself, but like you're not supposed to be like, this is
That's
a
what I was
3.
wondering.
Right.
Like, how do you stop the table talk, or like even reading people's faces, or you know, things that could be cheating or whatever?
You have some honor, Randall.
Is that what it takes?
you just gotta take like the one rule that we kind of have, like one house rule that's like you can look through the discard pile to like, so we can always kind of keep track. Like we mentioned, there's kind of a set number of how many of each card there is.
You allow that?
Yeah, we always, that's what we did the other day too. We just like, if you need to double check like what's been discarded, and you can also ask someone else what they think they know, but without any confirming. But again, I mean, you got to be really careful about, you can't give like a little nod or a little, but you got to just trust the people you're playing with, I guess. But you know, the less you're cheating the game, the more fun you're going to have. Cause as long as you're in for playing like a difficult cooperative game. But I think
it's the tension that makes it fun.
Yeah, you're robbing yourself of the experience if you're trying to like cheat the game, and you're not. That's not going to be fun if you get 25 points by going, this is the 3, DJ. That's just that's, you know, yeah, that wouldn't be the game. Right. So, but a really highly recommended game on my end. I've had a ton of fun playing this game over the years. It's kind of been a constant, like, just pops up as a staple every once in a while. And it's only like $10 on Amazon, or I think you can even get it at Target and stuff, and just pretty much anywhere that sells like board game type hobby games, hobby shops or whatever.
How long to play through a game?
I would say half hour to an hour at the most.
Nice.
Yeah, and that's like when we play, you know, we are kind of like, we're getting kind of serious. We're like
we
thinking
stress
about
out
every move and like, what? Okay, whose turn is it? And we just, yeah. So, but because of that, it also is hard to keep track of. Like, sometimes you're even, what do I even have? Like, I have this card tipped to the side. I don't even know if I remember what it is. So it's a pretty fun game. Although, yeah, not the best to play while you're like having some drinks. And yeah, a little tougher to keep straight.
Sure.
But yeah, I didn't really have any more to add, but anything more to add on either of your ends?
I'd say it's one of my favorite cooperative games, because I think a problem I have with a lot of cooperative games is I think one person can kind of just essentially be the player. Like with Pandemic, you know, you're trying to decide how to move the pieces, but one person could essentially just say, okay, you go here, you go here, you go here. Mm-hmm. And it kind of takes the agency away from the rest of the players. But with like Hanabi, everyone is very integral. And I don't know, I just, whenever I play, I don't want to let the team down.
And also, though, when you feel like, because you even feel like you let it down, like even when I gave you that hint and you played the card, it was like I felt like it was me. I was like, I should have known that John was going to play that. He was going to know, like, well, none of those 4s aren't certain, so he must be telling me to play this other card or whatever, you know.
Mm-hmm. It can be pretty frustrating if like you and another person just throughout the whole game are not on the same page. You really do have to get familiar with how they interpret certain hints, because a lot of times, like, your hints aren't going to be clear about, like, this is playable. Like, sometimes hint will be, this is discardable, or so.
Yeah.
And that there is also, like, there's a point at the game where, like, in the meta of the game, like, that where once you start playing more cards, you start, like, giving hints that, or at least we start giving hints that were, instead of, like, oh, this is a card that you should play, no, this is a card that you should discard.
Yeah, this card's garbage. It's worthless to us.
Yeah.
For this game. Yeah.
So the managing of like what you're trying to gain hint tokens back, or you're trying to use hint tokens, like there's so many different aspects of like a very simple game that I really like of it.
Yeah.
That's
awesome. It's super fun and highly recommended. But yeah, I think that pretty much wraps it up this week. We're going to keep it a little bit shorter this week, and John's going to spend the night, and we're going to roll right into another episode here for next week. But we do have our game of the month picked out for next month. Yes, the month of September. We're going to be playing through Katana Zero, which is a game that I think we talked about back in the day when we were still doing like trying to pick a game every week, which I still have no idea how we were doing that. 'Cause even picking a game every month is like, God, how do we find the time?
I know.
But yeah, Katana Zero is something that's seems like it's got a little more of like an bite-sized, at least, level-based chunks of, we can squeeze in some levels here and there, some fast-paced action, something a little different from Into the Breach, which was pure, like, it was kind of chill, but it was turn the brain on and fry that thing. So yeah, we'll be talking about that next month, and maybe we'll bring John back, maybe we won't. We'll see if he has a good time at the sleepover. So
we'll see if I make the
cut. Well, yeah, thanks for listening, everyone, and this has been episode 17 of Pursuing Pixels, and have a good evening. Take care.
Bye.
And then a SUPERHOT. Did you play some or?
Yeah, not a super ton. Yeah, it's fun.
Have a super lot.
Yeah, nice job.
Oh man,
I quit.